guys, John Cutton. I hope all is well with everybody. I wanted to start today. Today, for many of you, not all on the line, but many of you on the line, is going to be your last webinar. And what I wanted to kind of kick things off with is I have done exit interviews with probably 17 or 18 advisors who had started approximately a year ago. And what I wanted to do is, A, thank everybody. One of the things that I'm very proud and excited about is all of the positive feedback that I've been getting about the program itself. I'm excited that many of you have chosen to continue to work with us in our Year 2 program, which I will touch on again real briefly at the end of today's presentation. And I think most importantly, I'm ecstatic about the results that this group has gotten. So from the data that I've gathered, it looks like for 17 interviews that I've done, exit interviews, there are close to 30 CPAs that are in formal alliance programs with advisors who finished their year program, and there are almost 50 other what I will call solid relationships with CPAs that were built in that year through those 17 participants. So that's awesome as far as I'm concerned, results, and something that I'm really, really excited about. As you know, guys, to switch gears for a minute, what we're going to do today is focus on where we stopped, I should say, from the last webinar, which is going a little bit more deeply into once you have a CPA who's joined your alliance program, into how to ultimately make those weekly and bi-weekly interactions as effective as possible. And I'm going to continue to go through those 16 different interactions that we've created here in our practice to be able to pass that along. I got some really positive feedback from the group from the last webinar that what we had done last month was very helpful. So with that, from a housekeeping perspective, we've seen this now a bunch of times. When we go to the Q&A session, the way we ask questions is to either write in your questions using the send message feature on the lower right side of the webinar menu, or you can raise your hand. And if you raise your hand, I can unmute your line and allow you to verbally ask your question to me, and the group will hear you as well. So when we get to that Q&A, please keep that in mind. And from an agenda perspective today, what I really wanted to focus our time and energy on is making sure that we continue to go through those 16 interactions that we spoke about. So again, I think we had last webinar gotten through either 5 or 6, I think 5 actually. So we've got about 10 of those to go through today. And again, the idea of that, guys, is once we've established the relationship, to make sure that as we have those interactions that you have data and information on which you can present, and that you're prepared, and that you ultimately have a plan and a track to run on. So again, I think what we're teaching today is very, very purposeful, and will definitely give you a track to run on. So we're going to go through 6 through 16 today, and that's really the basis of today's presentation, is I want to make sure we get through all of that. Lastly, I want to quickly revisit the Year 2 program as well. I think of the 17 advisors that I did exit interviews with, I think 9 have already committed, and 4 or 5, I believe, will commit to a Year 2 program. Only 3 or 4 decided it wasn't necessary. So I want to go through that again for some of you who might have missed that, or I have not yet had an exit interview with, so you understand the benefit of that Year 2 program as well. I'd like to have some Q&A time. I'm hoping I can get through these 16 kind of quickly, because since for many of you this is the last webinar, I would like to make sure we have time to do a live Q&A session. And then I'd just like to make some closing remarks if time allows. And then that is basically what we have for today's webinar. So as you've seen before, guys, I'm going to throw this up on the screen, and I am going to plead with you to make sure that you are following this step by step, every single interaction that you have. I have shared this more than a dozen times probably throughout the training program. It is all about following this, guys. And again, starts with prospecting, our initial meeting, some to thank you that same day, the office visit, which needs to be done, guys. A lot of us are still skipping that part, followed by hopefully the same day that lunch or social meeting. And then we want to simply get them to do something, right? Client event planning, or get them to do something. We talk about that in our scripts and give some ideas of various kind of dip your foot, if you will, in the pool before you dive in. And it's all about getting that CPA to make a first step. Doesn't matter what it is, but we simply need them to do something which will get that snowball going downhill, and that momentum will begin to build. The key and core to the entire program, guys, and the success that you're going to have is that weekly and biweekly interaction. The exit interviews that I did, the advisors who have their CPAs that are committed to meet every week or every other week are having huge success. The advisors who are not meeting every week or every other week are having some success, but what I will call limited success. So the entire key, guys, is right there, the weekly, biweekly interactions, and today we're going to go deeper in what to do in them. And again, when the CPA begins to view you as being in charge, and I'm doing with my fingers right now quotes, in charge, if they know you have a plan and you, every time you see them, add some value and continue to teach them things about what we do that they did not understand before they came into that meeting, ultimately they're going to continue to follow you and they're going to view you as their consultant. And as long as that happens, guys, you have the keys to the kingdom. And if you have the keys to the kingdom, that's where a dozen plus in-segment clients begin to flow. But that will only happen if they're viewing you as their peer and leader, and ultimately, if you have a plan, and they will ultimately follow that plan that you have. And then as we know, the last step there is friends for life. I had breakfast with the CPA who's part of the firm. I had lunch with the CPA who's part of the firm. And we ate dinner with the CPA, with two CPAs actually, who were part of the firm. Those breakfast, lunch, and dinners were not talking business. It was BSing. It was talking about personal information, if you will, family, friends, sports, the economy, etc., but did not talk about my relationship in incorporating financial planning. So when you have a business meeting, make it about business. When you have a social meeting, make it about being social. And ultimately, keep referring back to this model, guys. When you start to lose your way a little bit, this simple little flow chart, I believe, is one of the keys to really ingrain this into what it is you're trying to accomplish. I did a webinar for a group who started just a few months ago, actually late last week. And one of the things that I hit on, and I want to revisit it with our group here today, is the importance, and I want you to listen to my words very closely here, the importance and significance of you as the advisor understanding each and every time you have an interaction with the CPA what you're trying to accomplish. Sounds really simple, guys, but you can't just go into a meeting without a purpose. And as I've hopefully taught you guys, we should be doing, whenever possible, 70% of the time we should be listening, 30% of the time we should be speaking. I want the 30% of the time that you're speaking to have a purpose and to be impactful with the intention of continuing to push that ball forward so that you are bringing the relationship into the model that I have taught you, and that they continue to get on, again, what I call that yes train, and that you keep ever so slightly pushing that meeting forward. So one of the things that I want you to remember is what you heard in this training program is all what you're going to say. And sometimes I think advisors have a hard time remembering that there's another live person that's in these meetings, and that would be the CPA. And there's a lot of conversation and a lot of input that should be coming from he or she. Our job is to continue to make sure that every interaction that we have, we know that at the first meeting, we want to get them to the second meeting, the office visit. After the office visit, I know I want to get them to say how impressed they were. After they tell me how impressed they were, I want to ultimately get to a point where I'm talking to them about 3 different options, right? The 3-option discussion. I want to get their input on which option seems best, and then I want to show them that I have a plan, how we will make this work, alleviate the doubts that they have in their mind as to whether or not this will work for their practice. And then ultimately, I want to get to the point where I'm creating that business arrangement or describing that business discussion, I should say, so that they understand financially what this could mean to their practice. And then I want to deepen the relationship by getting to the point where they view me as a valuable person in their life and a consultant, not just to the financial planning end of things, but also to their business life, and if at all possible, carry that forward to their personal life. When we can understand the way I just described that, get that into your brain and your mind so that every time you're in an interaction, you understand you're just trying to push it to that next step. When that really connects, guys, that's when you're going to have huge success and where you are truly in a position that you're going to be unbelievably impactful in these CPA meetings. So I understand it's always work in progress, or in process, I should say, but the reality of the situation is when you internalize what I just said and can explain that back to somebody else off the tip of your tongue as to exactly what you're trying to do, that's when I know that you're going to master this and have all the success that you should and will deserve at that point to have. So with that, we had gone through the first 5 of the impactful meetings to have with CPAs in our last webinar. So what I want to do today is start off with number 6, and I am going to attempt to go through these fairly quickly so that we do have some time for Q&A. So here's the 6th weekly or biweekly interaction, and I entitled it here, Discuss Your Overall Investment Philosophy. This is something that I did in my meetings with the CPA firm that I had mentioned a little bit earlier, just yesterday. So the idea here, guys, is when I come into the meeting with the CPA, I'm going to make my small talk, follow up on some issues, and I'm going to say something along these lines. You know, hey, Ken, one of the things that I thought would be very impactful for us to go through today is I want to spend some time, I know we touched on this before, but I want to really share with you so that you fully understand what my overall investment philosophy is. And I want to show you some samples of the work that we're going to be able to do for your clients and really explain to you at a high level exactly what is encompassed in that process. So the key, guys, is I want to educate the CPA on portfolio development. I want to talk about optimization by ongoing review, rebalancing, et cetera. And again, you have to build this out to whatever your own investment beliefs are, but you want to go deep talking about your investment philosophy. You can review a sample portfolio, asset allocation. What we generally do, we use a lot of Morningstar, so we will use a Morningstar review to go through that type of process. In that process, and I'm going to actually show you as an attachment exactly what we deliver on a Morningstar report and how I might present it to a CPA, we're going to hit things like alphas and betas and standard deviation and returns within quartiles for different clients. And we're going to also make sure that we disclose costs. If you haven't figured this out yet, guys, one of the keys to CPAs is they are usually very cost conscious. So being cost conscious to me means that they're okay with their clients paying fees. What they want to know is that there's transparency in fees and that the fees that their clients are paying are fair and in line with industry standard and just what type of work you're going to be doing for that particular client. So once I shared with the CPA my investment philosophy, and again, guys, I'm going to abbreviate this because this is a 15 or 20-minute overall interaction, I would use something like what you should see on your screen in front of you now, which is a Morningstar snapshot. And what this is looking at is a fictitious client's portfolio. You can see it has about $1.2 million in the portfolio. You can also hopefully see that what the overall allocation looks like as of a certain date. Here it was October 25th of 2011. What's cash, what's U.S. equities, non-U.S. equities, and on the fixed income side in bonds. I'm then going to go through the style box with the CPA, and I'm going to talk about what the difference between value, core, and growth investing is. And I'm going to make sure that the CPA understands the difference because, again, I want them to see why I'm better and why I'm different. If you look at the left here, you can see sectors. So I'm going to talk about the defensive, cyclical, sensitive, what the benchmark is, and then where this portfolio ultimately sits. I will spend a little time talking about trailing returns in this particular portfolio and what the portfolio would have done relative to the benchmark. And then most importantly, guys, I'm going to hit things like what the current 12-month yield on the portfolio is, give some of my thoughts about the current economy and why I believe dividend-producing securities may be the way to go. Here are what some of the holdings are. And then ultimately, I'm going to go kind of deep, guys, into what I will call the risk-reward profile for a portfolio that I developed. This is talking right within a CPA sweet spot. So they want to hear me talk about the scatter chart that you see in front of you and how this portfolio is being managed on a risk-adjusted perspective. They want to hear about standard deviation, mean, Sharpe ratios, alphas, betas, R-squared. So I'm going to spend some time, and I'm going to take my cue from the CPA. But what, again, I'm trying to do here, guys, is make a presentation and solicit feedback and answer questions. So the CPA, again, can fully understand my process and can fully understand all the work that goes into developing a portfolio for a client. And what I will do is I will point out sales opportunities throughout this. So one of the things that I may say is, Ken, as we do a review for a client, one of the nice pieces is I'm going to look at something like a beta coefficient. And if you were to tell me one of your clients owns a certain mutual fund, by the way, we can just look at a tax return and gather which funds your client owns based on the dividends and capital gains that are paid. Based on that information, I can run a quick report that would look something like this. And what that would allow me to do is on the Davis New York Venture Fund, as an example, if one of your clients owned it, I can go and really quickly make an assessment based on the risk profile of that particular fund. If I could find it here, I'd be dangerous. Here we go. So here's a fund that happens to have a beta of a little bit over 1. And I can explain to the CPA what that means. I can also take a moment and I can talk about what the Morningstar rating means, and that this happens to be a fund that's a 1-star fund over 5 years. So what I'm teaching the CPA is how I could potentially be building a case from the from a potential client's perspective as to when we can actually consider making a change. So this is an example of a tool, guys. As I send the replay, you will have copies of that as well. But what I do want you to be able to see is how we use it, and hopefully you can see how that could be a really impactful meeting for a CPA. Now, I don't want it to be salesy. I want it to be informational. I want to educate the CPA, and most importantly, I want you to be able to use it as a way to build credibility and to show the CPA exactly what you do, what your philosophy is. Part of that presentation, by the way, guys, should talk about rebalancing of a portfolio and kind of what the overall investment philosophy is as a whole. So there, I think, is a very impactful meeting to have with the CPA. And we just reviewed that example. So going to what I will call meeting 7. And mind this, guys, you do not need to do these in any specific order. These are just 16 ideas that you can use based on the CPA personality and what you think would be of most interest. But it gives you 16 tracks to run on throughout the year. So meeting 7 would be to review the various types of retirement or college saving vehicles. And I put in parentheses there, consider bringing a specialist. When I say bringing a specialist, and don't mind that typo there, guys, I apologize. When you talk about bringing in a specialist, if you have a retirement planning specialist, as an example, who is part of your broker-dealer, this is another great way to show that you have resources behind you and to allow them to come in and demonstrate and help you continue to build your credibility. So on the retirement planning side, we can be talking about how a SEP plan works. And I'll give you guys a perfect example. One of the meetings that I had yesterday at the CPA's office, CPA who has a very, very high-end clientele, was really upset, and again, this is a new relationship for us, with a financial advisor that he referred business to, that they were looking to create a retirement plan, a profit-sharing plan for a client, and the client wanted to own a life insurance policy within the profit-sharing plan. And the financial advisor had no experience, no knowledge, and actually said that can't be done. You can't buy life insurance within a pension plan, which we know that that is a possibility, and you have to have the right third-party administrator to draw the plan and the right insurance professional to implement it, but it can be done. So when you start to demonstrate things like this, what happens is it starts to jog the CPA's memory about opportunities that he or she might have seen in their client base. So SEPs, Simples, profit sharing, DB plans, individual 401ks. This is at the core of what a CPA does. CPA's most important client is going to be the small business owner. And quite frankly, guys, the reality is most CPAs know about enough to be dangerous when it comes to qualified retirement plans. So to be able to educate them, then we actually we will hand them a cheat sheet that shows the CPA the different types of retirement plans that are out there, what the contributions, max and minimums are, the limits, and kind of where it's most appropriate based on the employer situation. So we're going to also give them a handout at that meeting as well, which they can utilize with their clients. But you will get a lot of dialogue. This will be a very open conversation. As I was in the CPA's office yesterday, true story, one of the CPAs, the managing partner, in fact, handed me a letter that came from another broker-dealer that was basically describing a solo 401k or an individual K, which he said he knew very little about and was hoping I can explain it to him. Okay, so guys, they are looking to be educated. It's a way for you or a wholesaler or specialist to start to provide value. We could talk about 401ks, 403bs, 457, deferred comp, et cetera, et cetera. You become the expert and educate them. Discuss third-party administrators. I have found that many CPAs have a hard time fully understanding what a TPA or third-party administrator does and finding one that is competent. So if you have a solid relationship with a third-party administrator, that might be a great person to bring into the meeting to be able to really share the intricacies of plan development and creating an efficient plan document and to help you to ultimately educate the CPA. It also helps you add credibility to say, hey, when you uncover something, when you have a small business owner who's 64 years old, hasn't put away a lot for retirement and wants to begin to do some now, we have someone that we know that we can actually help design a plan specific for them. Bring brochures and leave them. Grab a solo 401k brochure or something that your firm or BD may offer in the way of a retirement planning brochure. Have some leave-aways. Have, as I had said before, tools that they can ultimately use to really better have access to threshold limits, contribution limits, etc. On the education side, guys, and I think you guys got the idea, 529s, Coverdales, UTMAs, etc. Same type of thing. Bring brochures, bring information, etc. And what I want to do is give you an example of a piece that we use. And again, you'll get this as part of the email that we send out. And this actually will explain retirement planning contribution limits. So here's defined contribution limits for qualified plans, SEPs, SIMPLEs, 403Bs, etc. And I'll actually bring the CPA through. Here's the limits in 2010. Here's what they are this year in 2011, or I should say last year, and then ultimately continue to walk the CPA through the 25% compensation of employees that can be ultimately contributed, and what the different rules and regulations are within each retirement plan. We'll talk about what the maximum compensation limit is, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not going to walk you through this entire, I think it's an 18-page document, but what it is it's showing the CPA that we are educated. Here are tools that we ultimately have at our, at our fingertips, and how we can continue to be a resource for the CPA as a whole. So I think you would hopefully agree that in doing a meeting with the CPA firm, my belief is going through retirement plans and the college piece here is clearly going to be a hot button for CPAs, and that information would be very helpful to them to continue to build rapport and for them to be able to use with their client base as a whole. Moving to meeting number 8, Leadership Readiness Assessment Model. Now, many of you went through one of my webinars that hit on this. I can share with you guys, and I've done this for CPAs, most CPAs, like most financial advisors, by the way, have never truly been taught leadership skills. So we utilize, and I took many of you through this in the program, what we call a readiness assessment model. This is a tool that I will demonstrate, much like I demonstrated the webinar for the group, to actually walk a CPA through what the readiness assessment model is all about. So you can review the readiness assessment model, what I call the communication model, the whole communication model, which we have also touched upon throughout the presentation, how to deliver whole messages, and how to ultimately use your communication skills to influence behavior, right? That's kind of the that process of that feel, felt, found, right? Hey, Ken, I've certainly understand how you're feeling about this being awkward and actually calling your clients to ultimately give a referral. What I found, Ken, from my experience, is that if you ultimately prepare the right way and you get to a point where we role play this script and you're ultimately comfortable, what I've ultimately found is that it's a lot less scary to deliver than you might think. And what I found even further is once you make that first call to a client, that's the most difficult one, and each and every call going forward gets that much more easy. So with that being said, and then I continue to lead that communication going the direction that I want it to. So teach them these skills. Talk about accountability, leadership skills. And this can be carried through, guys. I almost position it, hey, Ken, this is something that I've learned through my own coaching program and through me being a student of the business and the leadership world. Here's something that I might be able to teach you that is practical and that you can ultimately bring to your staff as a way to lead them better, hold them accountable better, and help you more better identify where they are in the readiness model and match your leadership style to them. So, Ken, with that, let me share with you what this looks like. Now, you look like a genius when you ultimately position this to the CPA, right? You look like you've developed this all on your own. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here because we've hit it in a webinar, but this is where we're talking about S1, S2, S3, and S4 leadership, right? Which, again, we need to ultimately attach our leadership style to the readiness assessment of the individual that you're leading. So we can use this one or two ways, guys. We can use this as a way to lead the CPA to ultimately perform a task that's important, and we can properly identify their readiness assessment and match our own leadership style. Or we can ultimately use this as a way to teach the CPA how to be a more effective leader to their staff and their team in place. And again, I'm not going to hit these slides in detail from a time perspective, but most of you have already seen this. But again, we're going to assess their competence and commitment, right? So training, role perception, understanding, and experience is the competency to do a task. Commitment is the desire, the incentive, the security, and the confidence to do a task. And once we determine where the individual is on a specific task on these 8 different, what I'll call subsets, we can now know what the right leadership style is to apply, which is ultimately what this slide before you ultimately walks the advisor, CPA, or staff person through as well. So some of you may need a bit of a refresher on this before you can present it from a CPA, but if you want someone, guys, to buy into you and follow you, what better way to get them to buy into you than to ultimately stand in front of them and teach them leadership skills and leadership theory that they have never been exposed to. If you want to get to a point where you're better and you're different and have someone follow you, I can't come up with a much better way to do it than to go deep into this type of information. Now, I've learned this stuff, guys, through actually going through training of my own. I tried to give you, those of you in the group, a cursory overview of some of what I've learned and what I thought was some of the most impactful. But it's up to you, and our second-year program is actually designed to go a little deeper into some of this leadership development. But it's up to you to really become a master of these leadership skills so that you can get better at influencing others' behavior. And if you haven't figured that out yet, guys, that's a big, big part of what I believe is critically important in being successful in the new world of building a financial advisory practice, because my belief is teams are going to continue to develop over time, and I believe in the industry we are going to see less and less financial advisors, standalone shops, if you will, and more ensemble or team practices where the lead advisor's #1 goal is going to be that managing partner, and that person's goal or job is going to primarily be to run the business through others. And leadership skills, I think, to build a $1 million+ business are going to be a real key to the success that we all have in the future of financial advisory practices. So again, leadership development is another weekly or bi-weekly interaction that you can have with a CPA. 9th meeting, drill for skill. So this might be, guys, a little bit further along in the process with the CPA as they're starting to give some referrals, things along those lines. I keep using my yesterday's interaction, but when you see 9 CPAs in a day, you get to, and do these 30-minute meetings, you get to see different things. We had a CPA who, as we sat in their office, actually dialed the phone and called clients to make appointments for us, with us in the room. And here's what I could share with you. He made 3 calls. He set 1 appointment. 1 he probably will set an appointment with eventually, and 1 he blew. And I was in the room and able to actually coach him while he made those calls. And he actually thanked me and gave me really positive feedback on it. Here's what he did wrong. He actually called up a client, got the client right on the phone, and basically said something like this. Yeah, I'm not sure if you'd like to, but I'm sitting here with a couple of financial guys. You might already be happy with the person that you have. I'm not sure. But if you wanted, we could take a look at your stuff, but no pressure. And, I totally understand if you don't want to. In a nutshell, that's how he delivered it. Okay, that was his first call. I thanked him for making the call, and I said, hey, is it okay if I give you some feedback? He said, absolutely. Here's the feedback I gave him. The feedback, which you guys hopefully were able to pick up on right away, is you can't keep giving somebody an out. Maybe you want to. I understand if you don't. Think about it. Oh, I hope I didn't put you in a bad spot. And I said, here's what I really need you to say. And I handed him the script that you guys all have access to, and I basically said it aloud. And when I said the CPA's name is Jerry, I go, Jerry, here's what you really need to say. What you really need to say is, let's just say the client is Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith, I was just thinking about you today and looking at your situation, and I really believe that you could benefit from a second opinion or an audit of your overall financial picture. We've had many of our clients go through this with our financial planning arm, and I've been shocked to see that many of our clients were either paying much more in fees than they realized or were much more aggressive than they realized. And I would feel better if, as your CPA, I knew that I could sit in a meeting with you and a financial advisor that I trust to ensure that the advice that you're getting is the very best that you're entitled to. When can I have you into my office where I will sit in the meeting along with the financial advisor and yourself and make sure that everything you're doing is exactly what it should be? Now, that is a much different phone call than what I just muddled through before, which is what the CPA did. The second and third call, second call I got a little better, still a little wishy-washy. Didn't set the appointment, but the person said, yeah, give me a call after Thanksgiving and we'll set something up. The third one set the appointment on the spot, and that was by far the call that he was most direct in, okay? So, guys, that's leadership. That's pushing the ball forward, right? This is what we need to be doing. Demonstrate how to properly give referrals. I'll review the script with you. Bring that into a meeting with the CPA and literally demonstrate it for him or her. You read the script. You do what I just did, and then have them do it back for you. Have the CPA role play, meaning have them do it back for you and critique them, right? And when we critique, guys, it's 3 positives and 1 room for improvement. Hey, Jerry, I really liked your tone. The way you said it was confident. You delivered the body of the script, which I thought was really good. And quite frankly, just the fact that you have the guts to make that call, I think was unbelievable and I'm really excited about. Here's the only piece of feedback I give to you, is I think you were a little bit too wishy-washy. I think you gave the client too many outs, and I think if you said it this way and were a little bit more direct, it would be more successful and more impactful. Why don't we go through that again? Here's how I would say it. Now let me hear you say it in your own words. This is how we teach, guys. This is how we lead. This is how we ultimately drive results. Discuss how the CPA should open jointly held client initial consultations. Now, guys, this seems like common sense, but as the CPA starts to refer to you and you sit in the meeting with the CPA, what you're going to find is they don't know how to endorse you. They don't know how to become the client's fiduciary. I want you to actually explain to them what you've heard me say probably a couple 100 times at this point. You are the fiduciary, Mr. CPA. You sit at the head of the table. Here are the questions I want you to ask me. Here's how I want you to introduce me. And you're going to frame that out to the CPA so that they are in charge, comfortable, and are going to be confident when they do get in that consultation with you. And if they do it the right way, guys, and they follow what we teach them to do, what's going to happen is you're going to get 99% of those prospects will become your clients because it's an endorsed lead done the right way. A referral that the CPA doesn't sit in the meeting, doesn't endorse you rightly in the right way, et cetera, your odds are no better than a referral from an existing client or any other source. So the reality is, guys, how that CPA opens that meeting and the role and what their persona should be becomes really, really strategic and really, really important. Impress the importance of not just giving your business card to prospects, set appointment with the CPA, client, and you. I'm going to use yesterday as another example. One of the, we took on a financial advisor who was already part of this CPA firm, who's joined my firm to help us implement this program in this large accounting firm. He let me know how he got a name and phone number of one of the clients, of a referral from one of the CPAs. Now, hopefully by now, you guys on the line have all been trained well enough that you would know that when that CPA gave that name and number, what you would share with the CPA, hey, I really appreciate the referral. What I need to share with you is it's much more effective if we make that call together and let the client know that you are going to be part of that process. So I appreciate the referral. How about we jump in your office real quick, we dial this client together, and you set the appointment for a time that works for the three of us. Okay? So we want to make sure that the CPA is getting what the referral process is. We're drilling for skill, which means we are role-playing, demonstrating, observing them, and confirming that it's done the right way. As I said, guys, this isn't the first interaction with the CPA in a weekly, bi-weekly. This is when they gave you a referral or two already, your relationship has ultimately matured, and you can actually feel comfortable in front of each other, role-playing and sort of delivering difficult messages. What you can also do in a meeting like this, guys, is discuss common objections. So here are some of the things you might hear from your clients. I've had a broker for 20 years. He's been my family's broker. You know what? I'm not really looking for another financial advisor. I'm already working with two individuals. You know, what the common objection that a client might ultimately say. And again, I'm not going to spend our time here, but you then want to teach the CPA how to overcome them so that they are not caught off guard while they actually have that conversation. Here was another teachable moment. One of the calls I did with that same CPA, Jerry, the one I said we will set a meeting but haven't yet, he went through that whole big speech that I taught him to say, and then the client said, I don't have any money in the stock market or bond market. I keep all my money in the bank. And Jerry actually said to the client, he said, well, you must have over $1 million in the bank. And he said, yeah, definitely over $1 million in the bank. And Jerry got flustered. He didn't know what to say. And I wasn't quick enough to write it down. But, you know, we have to teach the CPA to say, well, that's a different type of risk. You know, my concern there is you're probably getting a 0.5% in the bank. It's taxable. Your tax bracket is extremely high. What you want to do is be conservative. I think there are ways that we can continue to be conservative, but reduce your tax burden, and at the same way increase your expected yield. The financial advisor that I work with does a lot of work with very conservative clients like you. I still believe it would behoove you to take a meeting and explore some options. Okay, that's easy for me to say. How well do you think a CPA can think on his or her feet and deliver that? They're only going to learn what to say, guys, if you teach them. So we have to go through objections like that and teach them what the quote-unquote rebuttal is. So with that, guys, you know what, for the sake of time here, rather than me show you the referral script, how a CPA should properly give a referral, I'm not going to go over to that. You guys all have copies of that, and I know you have that in your handouts and emails that we send, and that way saves me about 90 seconds of time here, which will hopefully help me get through all 16 of these. Meeting number 10. I feel like I'm doing the David Letterman show here. Have the CPA observe a client review meeting. So here's a great thing to consider doing, guys. You have to ask your client permission, okay? But if you ask one of your favorite clients, hey, can I ask you a favor? Would it be okay if a new member of my team who happens to be a CPA just sits in and observes our review meeting today, trying to give him a flavor or her a flavor for what we do with clients? And you're one of my favorite clients, and it's okay, I'd like him to just sit, observe, and take some notes so he understands our process. Really powerful, guys, because what you've now done is you've demonstrated for a CPA, number one, the relationship that you have with a client, where it's hopefully hugs and kisses and talking about grandchildren, et cetera. He gets to see you in action. He or she gets to see you in action and gets to see what a thorough job you do in the review and financial planning process, talking about clients' goals, objectives, performance, adjustments, the economy, whatever it is you do in a review meeting. So if you're able to do that, that would be great. If not, you can also consider doing a mock review for the CPA. So you can actually take a review that you did last week, everything that you prepped, and say, hey, Ken, you know what, I want to present to you as if you were my client what a review meeting looks like and what we do. And you then take a review that you prepped last week, you take the names off it, of course, and you simply go through the process of explaining, here's what we do in a review meeting. So a CPA can ultimately see live exactly what you do and what his clients will ultimately expect in the form of a review meeting. I think that that's a really important piece. And as you already know, guys, doing a sample financial plan for the client, or for the CPA, or a financial plan for the CPA, or an investment portfolio review for the CPA, I think is a huge idea. I had more than one CPA just yesterday say, they're all, I shouldn't say they all, probably 60 or 70% of the CPAs I met yesterday are also setting up accounts through my firm. They're not giving me all their money, but what they are doing is saying, hey, if I'm going to recommend you, I want to at least be able to tell my client that I use you. So here's 50 grand, go set up an account, or I have an old IRA, et cetera. So I think we're doing 4 full financial plans on accountants from that firm. And we took on 2 or 3 accounts, and then there were 2 or 3 that we suggested it, and they didn't say yes or no. But that's another important piece. That way, you're not doing a mock review. You're actually going through the whole process with the CPA. Take the time to show and describe your firm's client service process. And focus a little bit on tax planning. What I mean by that, guys, is let them know what you do in your service meetings. If you have a process, like we use what we call a seasonal client service model, let them know what the client can expect, and let them also know how tax planning is integrated into your process. Show them so they can ultimately see the value. So again, guys, just to go back there for a minute, observing, conducting, whatever you want to call it, a review meeting, we believe is a very impactful meeting to have with the CPA as well. Number 11, present a client appreciation seminar to the CPA. Now, if you have one scheduled with another firm, have them actually come observe it. We've done that where I've done events for other CPA firms, and I've asked that CPA, is it okay if I have another CPA that I'm working with come and check out the event? I brought them along so they can actually experience it themselves. You want to review with the CPA what their opening remarks. We gave you a script, what the introduction should look like. I'm not going to go to the example for sake of brevity, but you should already have that because we've given it out in your handouts. Review your presentation. So if they're not going to observe another CPA's event, you should actually do your presentation for the CPA. So here's what I would present to your client. I want to get your feedback on it. That way, if one of the concerns that they have about whether or not to do a client appreciation event where you're the guest speaker, if they have a concern, maybe you can alleviate that by showing them what you would actually present and how you would present it. We have given you a slideshow from a previous webinar that you should already have, and again, you have to make sure that gets compliance approved through your BD. Once you present it, solicit feedback from the CPA on how to improve the overall presentation. I'm going to hit these last couple kind of quickly, guys. Number 12, review how to actually uncover opportunities using the 1040. So this can be a weekly, bi-weekly interaction with the CPA in and of itself. What you're really doing, guys, is you're teaching the accountant how to ultimately search for opportunities. Now, Ken actually created this, or I should say, I guess he took it from the AICPA, but he presented it to you. So we can actually go through this particular form that will help the CPA start to understand the type of work that we do and how he or she can find those opportunities through a tax return. Does the client have children? Obviously, the opportunities that come from that. Elderly parents. Divorce. Client's income. Income deferrals, which would indicate a retirement plan. Does the client have a retirement plan? Social Security income. Income dependence, one wage earner. Again, I'm not going to read this all to you guys, but the tax return tells us a ton, right? Schedule B might be our best place to look, right? Sources of interest income, dividend income, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We can use this as a tool for a CPA one-on-one weekly, bi-weekly meeting to ultimately show the CPA again how to become what I will call a more knowledgeable student of how to properly refer business to you or I, the financial advisor. So that is a meeting in and of itself. 13, teach the CPA how to effectively market their firm. Now remember, they're going to follow you because they believe that you are a consultant to them. Review their website. A lot of CPAs don't have a website. How about helping them develop one? So here's a company that we've used in the past called CPASiteSolutions.com. They specialize in helping CPAs develop their own website. It's cheap. Don't quote me. It's something like 50 or 60 bucks a month for the CPA to have it. Now what's important here, guys, and there are a lot of companies like this. You can do your own research. But you're being a resource to the CPA. Hey, you don't have a website. You really should. Let me show you an article about the statistics of how someone finds a new client. Now, there are certain companies like CPA Site Solutions that also get involved in kind of Google and Yahoo, what's the word I'm looking for, where they help create more traffic ultimately to your particular website. So help educate them on that. The goal here, guys, is ultimately if a CPA has a website, we want to hyperlink to it. Right? When their client hits the financial planning tab, we want it to go directly over to your website as long as your company's compliance department approves that. Develop a press release to announce the partnership, your firm and their firm. Consider submitting it to multiple news services. You'd be surprised, guys, how easy it is to get a press release. Local newspapers, trade associations, professional magazines, etc. Create a client advisory board. Now, as financial advisors, we do things like this, right? I've in the past had client advisory boards. My partners still do that type of work. If you don't do that in your own practice, you may want to consider it. But maybe you could teach a CPA how to create a client advisory board. Get together 10 to 12 of your best clients, invite them out to breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and ask these questions. It's a way to solicit feedback on your practice. By the way, Mr. CPA, number one, it's a good way to get feedback. Number two, the other piece is you're going to ask about referrals, and that's going to let your clients know that you're looking for them. Deepens your relationship, hopefully creates more referrals. Most CPAs are not great marketers, right? You think most of them are in a networking group? Help them join a networking group. Create a networking group with you and the CPA together. Gives you another reason to see them on a weekly basis at the networking group. You're teaching them to ultimately be a better marketer. Continue, guys. Teach them how to conduct client events where you can be the guest speaker. But more importantly, teach them why that's a good thing for their business. Most CPAs don't do workshops, bring friend events, referral events, seminars. Teach them how. Help them plan it. Telemarketing. How many CPA firms have an intern in cold calling small businesses? Maybe you can give them that idea and help them implement that. Do they have a firm brochure? If so, review it. If not, suggest they have one and become a resource in how to develop that. Do they have a newsletter? If so, review it and become part of it. If not, help them create one. There are many companies out there, guys, for cheap cost that will actually create a newsletter that looks like it's custom made by the CPA firm, but it's all cookie cutter stuff that helps the CPA continue to have more contact with their clients, and you can make it so that it is a way for you to joint market. Small business seminars, maybe that's something you could do jointly. Review the CPA's firm's pre-tax season letter. Some CPA firms will send a pre-tax season letter. They should be sending it now, right? Or depending on the time of the year, they should be sending it, let's say, December, January, etc. What we want to do is to make sure that if they don't have one, that we can help them build one, show them an example of one as an example. And ultimately, one of the things that we want to do is to have them mention in that letter the fact that they've created a financial planning synergistic relationship. Maybe ask them during that tax season to bring in copies of their financial statements and things along those lines. And then lastly, guys, remember, it's your opportunity to become their leader. And if they actually see that you are able to provide this type of value, at the end of the day, they're going to appreciate it and want to reciprocate and help you through referrals. We are good marketers as financial advisors. CPAs historically are not. So use one of these meetings, if not several, to help become their consultant to their business. They're going to appreciate you making their business stronger. Real quickly, guys, because we're running out of time. Meeting 14, explain how the CPA will be compensated on all products. You know my saying, guys, right? It's not about the money, it's not about the money, it's not about the money until it's about the money. Let a CPA know you put $100,000 into a wrap account at a 1.25% fee. Here's the total comp. On an A share, here's the total comp. B share, C share, annuities, REITs, insurance products, etc. If you actually have a compensation manual or an online reference that shows how your BD pays you, share it with them. They're interested. Let them know. They also will feel as if, especially if they're licensed or getting licensed, that you are providing them with full and fair disclosure. And I would actually take a sample case and say, hey, here's a $300,000 referral that $50,000 went into an annuity product, $30,000 went into a C share, and the balance went into a wrap product. Here's what I would earn as an advisor and what you would earn as a licensed alliance on that particular case. Here's what you'd earn up front. Here's what you'd earn over time. Here are the different ways we can be compensated. We can take everything as a level compensation. We can get paid up front, et cetera, et cetera. Spend some time. They're not going to ask, but they do want to know. Number 15, Roth conversions. What big topic. For sake of time, guys, I'm not going to go through the example, but bring on your laptop an actual Roth conversion calculator and walk them through your philosophy on it and help come up with a strategy together as to when this does ultimately make sense for a client. Most CPAs do not fully understand the pros and cons of a Roth. They get the tax consequences, but they don't get time value of money and some of the other variables that we do. Another great way to add credibility. And then lastly, number 16 is revisit your joint marketing plan. Make sure that you spend time and you've seen the joint marketing plan. Again, this is the plan that you and the CPA create together. But revisit the joint marketing plan so that you continue to get commitment and feedback from the CPA and kind of go through the acid test, which is, are you actually willing to do this? When push comes to shove, can we do a client event? Will you make calls in front of me? Will we do a quarterly workshop, private dining events, et cetera, et cetera? But you want to spend some time having dialogue more than just the one time that you might have presented it to the CPA, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, ago when you were building the relationship. So if you revisit that, it will keep fresh in the CPA's mind what it is that we're looking to accomplish. Now, guys, I built out 16 of these. Some of these will become 2, 3, or 5 interactions. So quite frankly, if you're meeting weekly or bi-weekly, I think you have enough material here to practically last an entire year. And there are plenty other ideas that you don't need my ideas for that you can develop on your own that we don't have on this list. But these are some of what I found to be the most impactful interactions to have. So with that, guys, switching gears, and I've hit this before, so real quickly for sake of brevity, CPA roundtable meeting. This is our optional year 2 program. And let me start by saying this, guys, there's 2 year 2 programs that I've developed, okay? And this was from feedback from our first group that went through the program. One is what I will call a refresher course. And this is for an advisor who actually went through the year program but did not engage fully. Something came up in their practice, they got distracted, a staff member quit, there was an illness in the family, or quite frankly, they just bit off more than they could chew. They liked the material but didn't get the full benefit because they didn't do the activity. We have a handful of advisors that was them. If that's the case, one of the things that we decided to offer was to continue to have access to the program we're just completing, basically. And what we did is since you've already paid for it in 1 year, we reduced the cost to $250 monthly for what I will call a refresher course. Allows you to come back out to New York for full-day training, 3 30-minute consultations with Ken and I, as well as continued access to all of the webinars for you and your staff, as well as the webinars that we do for CPAs you're trying to build relationships with, and then, of course, continue to have access to my team and I with email questions and things along those lines. That's a $250 a month program. What you see on the screen in front of you is for an advisor who's had some success. They already have at least one CPA in a formal relationship, and what this program is designed to do is to really go deeper into making that relationship more productive and continuing to kind of sharpen the saw and increase your skill set. So what that looks like is it's a roundtable meeting facilitated by Ken and I in New York, where you will be around the table with other successful advisors around the country who have at least one alliance, and we are going to be sharing stumbling blocks, successes, failures, and really helping to troubleshoot and share each other's experiences and go deeper into really how to make the whole relationship work and fine-tune your sales skills. In addition, we're going to create a live day training that Ken and I will do again. This is designed for you to get a CPA to fly with you out to New York, and the day is actually designed for Ken and I to basically share what we've done to become successful and help you influence the CPA to ultimately make the right decisions about how to give a referral, role playing, why to do events and how to get your clients there, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really me and Ken taking the program and teaching the CPA with you in their presence why it's important to do these things the way that we teach so that they actually have a consultant of their own. And we believe that that's a huge opportunity for a couple of reasons. Number one, you're going to be taught how to do it the right way. Number two, it's not you telling them what to do, but it's us telling them what to do. And the credibility of that coming from someone like Ken. And I think number three, if you can get the CPA to come travel out with you, which I understand might not be an easy task, you're going to spend 36 hours with the CPA, which is going to go a long way towards your relationship building. To spend that kind of concentrated time traveling with someone, you get to know them in a much different way. For those CPAs who won't travel out to New York, and we suspect that might be the case with many of them, we're going to do the same type of program via a webinar, which is exactly what I just described above, as opposed to it being done in person in New York. Ken and I are going to teach it in a shorter format, but as a probably hour-and-a-half webinar. In addition, the second-year program also entitles you to 3 30-minute phone consultations for you to use any way you choose, no different than what you had this past year. Continued access via email, and an invitation for you or your staff to attend another full-day training. We've had a lot of advisors who come to the training more than once. They all have gotten much more out of the second training than the first, simply because they now have an idea of what kind of questions to ask, and they have the experience, so they're able to get more out of the program because it's not just theory at this time, at this point, but it's actually something that they've been practicing and have specific questions, concerns, and issues. In addition, we're going to do 6 webinars that are focused just on deepening your partnership with the CPAs. The idea of these webinars is to be less teaching and much more open discussion and troubleshooting. So it's going to be more, here's the concept we're going to talk about today, guys. Let's have some dialogue around it and share what all of us are doing, which is why we're keeping a Group 2 program to no more than 10 participants that will be allowed so we can have manageable interaction. So with that, guys, what I wanted to kind of close up with here before we opened up the lines briefly, probably about 10 minutes of Q&A if we have questions, is for those of you, and I know it's not everybody on the line, but for those of you who today is your last webinar, I sincerely hope that if nothing else, that you all felt as if your time spent in the program was money and time well spent, and that at the end of the day that you're happy that you made the decision. I have gotten, as I started the call with, awesome feedback from everyone. So I'm delighted to hear that everybody is actually being successful and felt as if they got a lot out of the program. My true desire, which is why in doing exit interviews, I got a lot of questions about can we continue to work together somehow. As a lot of you know, I spend a lot of my time running my business, and then this consulting work I think is work that I do more because I like to do it than for any other reason. It's turned into a nice side business, don't get me wrong, but I really want everybody who joins my program to be hugely successful with it. The growth we're having in our own practice through CPAs, and we literally every week add a new relationship or two or something positive happens. I think that if you approach this in the right way, it is the key to success. And I truly believe that for advisors, if you can continue to have access to Ken and I, and in having access to Ken and I, we're in a position that we can help you close a deal or troubleshoot or add some credibility or help a CPA give a referral the right way. I think to have that access, I wish I had it when I was building this thing out, because it would have made my job and my life a lot easier, and I would not have had things slip through my fingertips as sometimes they do. So anybody who wants to continue to go after CPAs, I would really highly encourage you, continue to associate with us in some way, shape, or form so we can continue to be supportive for you and your practice, with the ultimate goal being for everyone to have a handful of CPA relationships where we can ultimately put our, our practices on autopilot and not have to worry about where our next clients are going to go from. So with that, guys, what I want to start with here is a couple of questions that I've already seen typed in. And if you have questions, guys, if you can type them in, that would be great. So I have one question. It says, I'm having a problem motivating CPAs to commit to biweekly interaction if they are not in licensed relationship with me. What is their motivation to commit if they're not getting compensated? It's a great question. And the fact of the matter is, this is why getting them licensed and getting them committed is ultimately, or compensated, is ultimately the way you're going to win the game, okay? And that's where you want to move each and every relationship to. So the only motivation that's there, guys, is two potential motivations, right? One is doing the right thing for their clients and becoming a better practitioner. So I think that's really what you need to focus on. The second would be, in my opinion, is what you can help them with from the perspective of marketing and acquiring additional clients. So you have to create enough value without paying them to their practice or to their clients for them to ultimately feel as if it's worth getting together with you on a regular basis. And quite frankly, that's not always the case. It's not always going to work that way. And that CPA, unfortunately, might just be someone that you're drip marketing your lunch once a month instead of an interaction every week or every other week. It might not happen, but this just might be someone that's a passive referrer. Again, as I had said when I opened the call, there were more relationships built with non-formal alliances than formal. And that's the nice part, I think, guys, about working with CPAs. If you fail, and I'm calling failure here, not getting someone to agree to get compensated, you're still building a relationship with somebody who can have an influence on your career. I think the issue is it's not going to wind up being a dozen new clients a year. It might be 3 or 4. So with that being said, guys, I wish I had a better answer than that, but without you adding value, et cetera, it's going to be hard to be able to get someone, on a weekly or biweekly interaction. Another question, hi there, what's number 12? I went so fast I didn't get a chance to write it all down. Beats the heck out of me without going backwards. I'm not sure which one number 12 was, but we're going to send a replay of the webinar, guys, along with all the slides as we always do. So you will ultimately be in a position to get number 12. What does this say here, John? Great ending. I'm sorry? Just a comment. So do I need to read the comment, Eric? Basically, someone's just saying that they're continuing with us in year 2. and that's from you, Howard. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate your kind words. And any other questions we see here, Eric? I think we had a great group here, and I really, truly appreciate everybody's positive comments, participation, and I really hope that everybody got what they hoped out of the program, and I wish everybody continued success. Any way myself and my team can be a resource, certainly don't be a stranger, and I look forward to continuing to build a relationship with everybody.